Hello, my name is Billy Bailey. I'm a park ranger here at the Florida Cavern State Park. The Florida Cavern State Park is one of more than 160 parks and preserves managed by the Department of Environmental Protection, Division of Recreation and Parks. The Florida Cavern State Park is known for its underground features. The park also boasts many above-ground natural features that have supported animals and people since prehistoric times. Today we'll be walking down one of the park's nature trails to see some of these unique above-ground features that the park is known for. Behind me is the Bluff Trail located here at the Visitor Center parking lot. This is a 3/4 mile trail that extends from the Visitor Center parking lot and connects to the sidewalk at the cave exit. This trail passes through two unique natural communities, the temperate hardwood forest that you see behind me, as well as the floodplain swamp. When walking the trail, some things to keep in mind. There is stinging nettle and poison ivy located along the trail, and during the spring and summer months, mosquitoes are present, so please bring insect repellent with you. And here is the American beech tree. The American beech tree is one of two anchor species with the beech magnolia forest, also called an upland hardwood forest, terms used to describe the temperate hardwood forest, the natural community around us. The American beech tree was used by early pioneers to recognize fertile soil, and the nuts which this tree puts off are a very important source of food for many animals in this forest, including birds and squirrels. And here's the pawpaw tree. The pawpaw tree is an understory tree, rarely exceeding 10 feet in height. The purple flowers put off in the spring are very fragrant and are pollinated by flies and beetles. The fruit produced by this tree is a very important source of food to many animals in the forest, including box turtles. The next stop along our trail is this large spruce pine here. The spruce pine is one of the tallest of southeastern pines, and it can exceed 120 feet in height. The spruce pine is unique in that it is not dependent on periodical fire in its growth, as are many species of pines. This tree puts off very small pine cones, which are a very important source of food to bobwhite quail and squirrels. Here is the American beautyberry, also called the French mulberry. It's one of the first of the shrubs here in the forest to flower. In early spring, it has bright pink flowers that will extend all along the stem here. The berries it's producing now are a very important source of food for many of the animals in the forest here, primarily our songbirds. Here is the needle palm. The needle palm is named for the needles that grow along the base of this small shrub. It has purple and yellow flowers in spring and early summer months. The needles of this plant were used by Native Americans as tools, and the leaves were used for roof thatching and also shredded to make rope. And this is the needle from the needle palm. It was used as a tool by Native Americans. It was used for punching leather and also for hairpins. And similar to the needle palm is the blue stem palm, which grows in the same community here. The blue stem palm, you see the fruit here, it has this most of the year. It's an important source of food for many of the animals in this community. And these palms, they provide a very important shelter for nesting turkeys and for rabbits and bobwhite quails throughout this community. And in our next stop, we'll see another important source of shelter for these animals. And here's one of the many inhabitants of our temperate hardwood forest. That is the southern leopard frog. This is the tunnel cave. The tunnel cave is carved out naturally from erosion of the nearby Chipola River. The cave supports many different types of animals, including roosting bats. At one time, Native Americans would have used this cave for shelter. About 200 yards from here was a village of the Shaita Indians who used the cave for gathering clay and for shelter during storms. Other caves in the park are protected and are off limits to protect the natural resources found within them. The tunnel cave is about 110 feet in length, but for those who choose not to walk through the cave, there is an optional bypass trail that goes around the cave. Wow, what a change in temperature. The limestone is such a great insulator. It's almost a 30-degree change in temperature outside. Just outside the exit of the tunnel cave here, we find this large tree. This is a laurel oak. And here we have the American basswood, or the American linden tree. Very tall, straight tree, can get up to about 90 feet tall. The wood is popular with wood carvers. Beekeepers use this wood to produce the borders of the combs that honey is produced in. Even back in prehistoric times, this tree had uses. The fibers of this bark were used by Native Americans to weave baskets. On the limestone outcrops here in the park, because of the shading and the moisture held within this stone, you notice you'll see lichens, also mosses, and liverworts. This is the seed pod of the green dragon. The green dragon is closely related to the jack-in-the-pulpit and the pester john. And in the next 6 weeks or so, these seeds will turn bright red and then they'll fall off to produce new plants. And here we find a tree that is the southern extent of its range here in the Florida Panhandle. This is the black walnut tree. This tree is prized commercially for its lumber. The nuts are used to flavor ice cream, and the husk at one time were used for a hair dye, and today are used to stain furniture. This is the Tennessee leafcup. The Tennessee leafcup is an example of what we call a northern disjunct, meaning it's an isolated population found here in the park of a more northern species. Species like this were brought down during glacial periods and now form relic populations here in the Florida Panhandle. Other examples with our spring wildflowers of northern disjuncts are the bloodroot, the mayapple, the Mariana columbine, the false rue anemone, and the Allegheny spurge. And here is the coralberry. This is another example of a northern disjunct. This is a plant that's typically not found south of the Appalachian Mountains, and in Florida it's only represented in 2 counties. In fall, this plant produces red berries, which are technically drupes and are a very important source of food for many of the animals here in the forest. Here I am in one of the many shelter caves found within the park. Shelter caves like this were used by Native Americans to get out of storms, and now today they provide shelter for many species of animals here in the forest. In front of the shelter cave, there's this large straight tree here. This is the white ash. The ash tree is used commercially for its lumber. It's used in the manufacture of baseball bats, and the yellow leaves provide a beautiful fall color. And here is the red mulberry tree. The fruit produced in the late spring and early summer from this tree provide a very important source of food for many of the animals in the forest, including insects, squirrels, birds, and box turtles. The fruit from this tree one time was used as a dye by Native Americans. And this is one of the more recognizable of the trees found along the bluff trail. This is the southern magnolia tree. The large white fragrant flowers are produced in April and May and are pollinated by beetles. The southern magnolia tree is one of 2 anchor species used in the expression beech magnolia forest, as the temperate hardwood forest here is often called. The large glossy leaves of the southern magnolia are an easy aid in identification. As these leaves fall to the forest floor, they accumulate and provide an important shelter for many of the insects that survive on the forest floor. I'm standing here on a limestone bluff. This is the ancient bank of the Chipola River, which is about a half-mile away from here now. This limestone bluff that I'm standing on separates these 2 distinct natural communities. Behind me we have the temperate hardwood forest, and in front of me we have the floodplain river community of the Chipola River. The floodplain forest here is comprised primarily of red maple, cypress, ogeechee lime, and tupelo. The trees in this community have buttressed roots to withstand the periodical flooding, which brings in nutrients to them. The nutrients that are brought in by the Chipola River during flooding can well be compared to the periodical burning that occurs in the upland pine forest. The sparse vegetation in this community is due to the annual flooding here, which may cause the water level to fluctuate as much as 20 feet. Some of the animals you may see in this floodplain community are wading birds, beavers, turtles, alligators, and otters. This is one of the more unique of the plants that grow along the limestone bluffs here in the park. This is the oak leaf hydrangea. I've been told not to use any scientific names here, but I'll slip one on you. This is Hydrangea quercifolius. Quercifolius is the species and refers to quercus, or the oak. It's called the oak leaf hydrangea because a lot of people say that the leaf resembles that of an oak tree. The white flowers on this plant are white in the summertime. They turn cream color in the autumn and fall, and then brown in the winter. This is the redbud tree. It's recognized by its distinct heart-shaped leaves. In early spring, this tree puts off small pink flowers, which are shortly followed by flattened pods. And this tree is actually in the bean family. With the exception of the tour cave and the tunnel cave, all of the caves in the park will have gates or bars across them like this for the safety of our visitors as well as the protection of the animals and natural resources found within them. This towering tree behind me is one of the largest of the red oak group. This is the Shumard oak. It may reach a height of 115 feet tall and have a canopy of over 95 feet. An ancient tree, it may live well over 400 years. The acorns this tree produces in the winter times are an important source of food for many species of bird as well as squirrels. Our next stop along the trail, we'll see a plant whose ancestors date back to the dinosaurs. And here we have the Cretan brake fern. There are over 25 different species of fern found within the Florida Cavern State Park. In the same community as the Cretan brake fern here, we see the maiden fern there. This is the witch hazel tree. It is used medicinally as an astringent. It has yellow flowers in autumn. Notice the leaves of this tree are typically in pairs of two, one of the features for identification. Often grows near moving water, and in ancient times the limbs of this tree were believed to have power in divining water. Here's the American sweet gum tree. It's known for its beautiful red and yellow fall colors, and it puts off a fruit that's often called a space bug, a little small spiked ball. And climbing up this sweet gum tree, we have the poison ivy. Poison ivy is something you definitely want to look for here in the woods. And it's characterized by 3 leaflets on a vine that's often found climbing up tree. The old saying, leaves of 3, let it be. The active toxin in this vine, urushiol, is one of the most potent plant toxins in the world. The white berries that this vine produces in the wintertime is a very important source of food for overwinter birds like cedar waxwings, robins, and thrashers. This is the swamp chestnut oak, also called the cow oak, because livestock have been known to graze on the relatively sweet acorns. The shaggy bark here are a helpful identification feature if you're looking at the tree in the wintertime. Native Americans also gather the acorns as food. This is one of our summer wildflowers. This is the bear's foot, or the bear's paw. It's a southeastern coastal plain species characterized by the large leaves here, and is closely related to the Tennessee leafcup that we observed earlier. And here is the American beautyberry, also called the French mulberry. It's characterized in the summertime by having pink flowers all the way along the stems here, followed shortly by a bright purple berry, which is an important source of food for many animals in the forest, including box turtles. As we near the end of our trail, reflect on some of the things we discussed, some of the elements that make up this distinct natural community. There are many species of rare plant and animal that occur within these two natural communities that we have observed today and contribute to the very rare balance in the ecosystems found here. It is for this reason that all of the plants and animals, natural and cultural resources found within Florida state parks are protected for our enjoyment as well as the enjoyment of our future generations. We thank you for taking part in our nature walk today and hope you find this video useful if you have a chance to get out and walk the bluff trail and experience the real Florida.